Hello and welcome back to Bookish. Last week I did a video called the Think Twice tag. The Think Twice tag was created by A.J. Dunn Reads and Writes and Jolene Bookworm Adventure Girl, and I'll leave a link to their channels down below. But when I was doing that tag, one of the things that occurred to me was that sometimes I think viewers feel like they're left out of tags. So one of the things I decided to do in that tag was to open up one of the questions on the tag, or one of the prompts on the tags, and ask my viewers to respond, and then I would make a video containing their responses. So that's what this video is. And the prompt on the tag that I asked them to respond to was to suggest or to name two books they thought paired really well together, or that would make a good reading pair. And so this is a video in which I'm just going to read you the comments they sent me and show you their suggestions. Most of these are books that I have not read. Many of these are books are from authors that I have not read. And so I don't really know anything about the books, but I love getting book recommendations here on BookTube, whether it's from commenters or from other channels. One of my favorite things, so I thought I would share those things with you. So the first answer to my question came from Pamela Tarajcak. I hope I said your last name right, but probably not. And she said, for my answer to your question, Once Upon a Wardrobe by Patty Callahan and Finding Dorothy by Elizabeth Letts, both historical fiction meditations on a writer and his most famous work. Wardrobe is about a young woman who, on behalf of her ailing little brother, finds a way to interview C.S. Lewis about his inspiration for Narnia. The answers she gets are far more profound. Dorothy is a fictionalized account of the life of Maud Gage Baum, L. Frank's wife, as she meditates on her husband, the writing of the extraordinary books, and her famous suffragette mother while she's on set during the shooting of the landmark 1939 film. There she interacts with the girl that needs her the most, the girl already being consumed by the studio, Judy Garland. So there you go. That's the first suggestion I got. Thank you very much, Pamela, for your suggestion. The next suggestion came from John Oliveira. John comments on my channel quite a lot, and so I was happy that he responded. He says, I do love book pairings. At the moment, I'd say Hilary Mantel's Wolf Hall pairs exceptionally well with George Garrett's Death of the Fox. Henry VIII and That Bastard Cromwell, followed by Elizabeth I and Sir Walter Drake, and all of the court intrigues that generationally follow the monarchy. Both books are the first in trilogies. I haven't read 2 and 3 in Mantel's trilogy, but the other 2 in Garrett's, Entered from the Sun and Succession, were as good as the first. I'm assuming Hilary Mantel kept up her outstanding skill, and the rest of the trilogy will also entertain. Thank you, John, for answering and for giving those great suggestions. The next suggestions came from PJreads. PJ also comments on my channel regularly, and he writes, he actually answered prompt 9, which I'll show you in the video here, but just focusing on the prompt 12 answer. He says, both are fiction. The Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver, Wizard of the Crow by Ngugi wa Thiong'o. Both are set in Africa. Both focus on self-centered men, and both focus on a self-centered man and his disastrous effects on others. The Poisonwood Bible is centered on white people and written in the Western traditions, and Wizard of the Crow is centered on Africans and written in African traditions. I think those are excellent. That sounds really interesting, as all the books have. Thank you, PJ. The next response came from Regina Lemoine, or Lemoine, depending on pronunciation. Regina also, I find comments from Regina on my channel quite frequently. She writes, prompt 12, man, this was hard. So many choices. I decided to go with Life After Life by Kate Atkinson and The Night Shift by Sarah Waters. Both novels do interesting things with time in their structures. Overlapping themes include the ways in which certain choices or circumstances can change the trajectory of one's life for better or for worse. Also, each book addresses World War II, the Blitz in interesting ways, from the perspectives of female protagonists involved in some way on the home front. Those are certainly 2 books that I've seen recommended, 2 authors I've seen recommended many times that I'm kind of embarrassed to say I've never read anything by either one, so thank you, Regina. Another response came from a channel which is a little bit, or came from a commenter which is a little bit newer to me, called Popthebubble Chart Leaks, and they write, Floating Coast by Bathsheba DeMuth and Fathoms by Rebecca Giggs. They're both nonfiction. They're both about whales. The first combines indigenous Russian, British, and American whaling ecological and political history. The second combines these same genres but has a greater focus on modern climate change and Japanese whaling. really great. I really do like seafaring stories or stories about things that happen on the ocean, even though I get terribly motion sick myself. Next comment came from Eva Ennis. Eva or Eve comments on my channel from time to time. I always enjoy reading what she has to write. She writes here, thanks for the opportunity to contribute. I haven't started either book yet, but shortly I want to read together Confessions by Augustine and The Last Temptation of Christ by Nico Kazantzakis. There we go. I think I said it. I'm going to try it again. I was impacted by Kazantzakis' St. Francis, and my thought is that I can compare Augustine and Kazantzakis in their search for an approach to God. That sounds really interesting and fascinating. I don't know that those are things that are necessarily in my reading areas of interest, but that sounds really fascinating. I hope you, when you do read those two books, maybe come back and leave me a comment or make a video of your own, which would be awesome to see. Next comment came from Jungastein. I think that's how you pronounce his handle, or the handle. Prompt 12 he writes Tropic of Capricorn and Death on the Installment Plan, Mort à Crédit, by Henry Miller and Louis Ferdinand Céline, respectively. Both were published in France in the 1930s. Both styled upon argot, both scathing critiques of the world of work, growing up subject to the inhumane materialism of New York, Paris at the turn of the century. Both hysterico-delirious autobiographical chronicles. If one reads Miller's failures up to his first book, Tropic Cancer, one can see how Céline catalyzed Miller's writing overnight, as if it were with Voyage au Boîte de Nuit. That's my best French in 1932. In temperament, the two men could not be more different. Nevertheless, their choices of what to notice and how to spin their observations are similar. I have to say that probably about 90% of that went over my head. But for those of you who are smarter than me, like Jungenstein actually obviously is, maybe those would be recommendations which resonate with you. Thank you very much for that. The next comment came from a longtime commenter on my channel, Michael Clark. I want to thank you, Michael, for commenting. Michael writes, like you, I have two short story collections that I think make an interesting pairing that came out last year. They're both set amongst an immigrant group who both end up in the California Central Valley, though a decade or two apart, and are written by gay male writers. Gordo, by Jamie or Jaime Cortez, tells of his Mexican-American family in the 1970s, and After Parties by Anthony Wiesna So explores stories of a number of extended members of the Cambodian-American community in the 1980s and 1990s. It's interesting to read about the parallels and overlaps of two groups with very different cultures, but also similarly core values, trying to adapt and be part of the dominant American culture of the time. It does sound interesting. I do love stories about assimilation and immigrant groups, and those sound really fascinating. Particularly, I think Gordo sounds a little bit more like something I might pick up in the near future. Thank you, Michael. The next comment comes from Ian P. Ian frequently comments on my channel as well, so thank you, Ian, for contributing. He writes, Hi Brian, and thanks for the opportunity. My suggestion from number 12 is a pair of books that are based on periods of huge social change in the UK, enclosure of agriculture and the rise of industry, from the perspective of people about to lose their whole way of life. They are Harvest by Jim Craichy, I think that's how you say his name, and The Gallows Pole by Benjamin Myers. They are also both brilliantly written and bring the period to life. Of course, there are hundreds of possibilities here, but I chose this one as I finished Gallows Pole last week, and I can't stop thinking about it. Thank you, Ian. Those do sound like really kind of interesting works of social historical fiction, so thank you for that recommendation. The next one comes from Monica with 2 cats and 116 lentils. Really great handle. And Monica actually provided 3 different pairs, but for the sake of some kind of brevity, I just went with the first one. I'm sorry, Monica, I didn't include all of them. So Monica writes, I love tags and now I get to participate in one. That is most excellent. One pairing that comes to mind, and I've actually recommended a few times in real life, is Dennis Johnson's Train Dreams from 2011 and Robert Seathaller's A Whole Life from 2015. Both are literary fiction, both quite short, less than 200 pages, and tell the story of men having to find their place in life after having suffered tragic loss or losses. The landscapes, U.S. Midwest and Austrian Alps respectively, their harsh beauty and demands are instrumental to the character's development and eventual self-knowledge. It makes it sound quite dull, I'm afraid, when actually both books are ripping good stories and beautifully told, and can be read in a weekend. So thank you very much, Monica. Those books sound interesting. Dennis Johnson is an author who's been recommended to me many times, and now I know a place to start at the very least, and we'll see if I go on to Robert Seathaller's book after that. The next comment comes from a really long-time commenter here who I've interacted with here and I believe on Voxer, and that's Joni Heisenberg. Joni writes, "Hi Brian, I'd like to offer for your consideration Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver and its inspiration David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. Both novels are narrated by the main character, Bildungsroman Roman genre. Both novels are coming-of-age stories that deal with social injustices and reversals of fortune. Full disclosure, I just started reading Demon Copperhead. Based on the description of the novel, I believe it adheres to the requirements of your tag." And it sounds like it does to me too, Joni, so thank you very much. And there you go. There are all, I believe, if I left you out, please leave me a comment on this video and I'll make a special video or put you in the Saturday Hodgepodge video. I believe those are all the responses I got when I asked my viewers to answer prompt 12 on the Think Twice book tag. I really, really appreciate it. I love this kind of interaction. And I hope that this video is something that I can repeat in the future, and I hope those of you who contributed felt like I did you justice. Anyway, I look forward to your comments in the comment section below, and as always, thank you for watching.